Hey, this is Soul, and this video is connected with something that I noticed that people are asking around in the Discord and stuff. How do you make assets that you imported by yourself work a little bit different than the default single object placement? If you import any asset to Arkenforge, it goes into your the most default way in which an asset can be placed. So whenever we choose an asset, let's take one object for here, everything imports basically as an object like this. It's an object single placement, nothing fancy. But there are times when you import stuff and you want that to change. So for example, if you would import, let's see, I have some organic tiles over here. If you would have a seamless skull pattern that you want to use for your floor, this is an asset that I built from several different types of skeletons that I bought from one of the creators on DM's Guild. And I made a square 512 pixels wide and high, so it is basically 2 squares in Arkenforge and on towards each side. But this still is a singular object. If I would drag it out like this, holding my control, it would just make it bigger. And there's no possibility in which I could just copy the asset over and over again, but well, that does not make sense. So how do I make it become a tile? Well, I go into tiled and choose the tile option. Okay. But what if I want to make it a default that this is a tiled option? Nothing as easy as that. Just right click and set as default placement. This makes this asset, each time that I select it, it remembers that this is meant to be a tiled asset. And now I can just drag it as a normal tile. And if I would drag it out, it reacts as a normal tile. I can also obviously go into my tile, texture scale, and change the texture scale. It is now a tiled asset by default. It's now no longer a single object asset. Okay, there are instances in which you will want to have objects like these, both the original, you will want to retain the original one, and you will want to have the new one. This is a good example that I have over here. Some time ago, I created this this asset, which was shown in one of the earlier videos, I believe. I copied it, and I made it look like this one. On the thumbnail over here, it looks very similar. Well, it looks the same. Because it's a copied asset. I hope that in the future there will be an option to regenerate the new copied thumbnail. But how could you do it? Well, there are a couple of ways, or 2 basic ways. You can re-import the content again, but that's an hassle and an errand. You can do it in your content library over here. I've not talked about the content library yet, as I don't feel confident enough to do it. Hopefully this will be a topic for one of the new videos or new tips. I'd rather actually copy my content in the import content panel, which is very intuitive for me and very basic. So if I go here, I go into natural. Let's take this one over here, the Shady 3.8. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click duplicate. Now I'm going to call it Shady 3.8. How should I call it? Let's call it Shady 3.8.5. I'm going to confirm. Now it's copied. Close. Open my content panel. Go into the folder. Shady 3.8, which was already changed by me. Shady 3.8.5. Now let's change it. Let's make it smaller. Let's evoke using hotkeys some of my adjustments. Let's make it a more autumn tree like this. Right click, set as default placement. There will be a small prompt. And now Shady Tree 8 is still this one, and Shady Tree 8.5 is now the new one. So I have retained the original that I wanted, and I copied it, the new one, and made the new one have some other other features or other or just other settings. You can do it with basically everything. You can do lines, you can do polygon placements, you can do objects, and so on and so on. It simply remembers the last settings that you have currently. I strongly advise you to copy your assets, duplicate them instead of modifying the original ones. It can become with time problematic to search for your asset. You just rotated something a little bit and then you forget that it's rotated, and so on and so on. A good naming scheme would also help. This is not an example of a good naming scheme, but that would certainly also be something very, very usable. So yeah, hope that helps with all those problematic imported assets. This is something that you can do only with your imported assets. It is not yet possible with Arkenforge assets. I hope that in the future it will be, but well, I understand that that may be a rather big problem with all the tagging system that is going on and other issues, but hopefully that will be at some point resolved, and we'll be able to create even more custom or customized assets by ourselves. Take care and see you around.